Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Shooting the Breeze. This is my first live stream that I'm doing as Shooting the Breeze. I'm Kate Fantanell, or Lady Liberty, and I thought I would hold this important live stream tonight to talk about the Western Australian gun laws and the Reform of Firearm Laws paper that has been doing the rounds. Your submissions are due tomorrow. The government only gave us 1 month consultation period to write your submissions, and I've had a lot of questions from my followers asking for advice, for help. What do we do? What do we say? Where do I send it to? So I just thought, why not have a live stream, answer all your questions? Please feel free to jump in the chat, give us your feedback, ask some questions. Good evening, Gary. Good evening, Des. I have a very special guest who's gracing me with their presence at such last notice. He is the president of Firearm Owners United, which is a really big and great shooting organisation that has done a lot of good work. And he's here tonight to talk about their submission, which has been a joint effort. So thank you, Michael, for joining me tonight. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. You just got back from the range, you were saying before the show, which is very appropriate. Did you have a good day?
Oh, yeah, it wasn't too bad. Just get a quick little shoot in, little attendance from the handgun. Happy days.
Yeah. Well, my range is still closed in Perth at the moment, Lone Rangers. I'm not sure why. I have to give the boys a call. But we have other pressing matters to talk about tonight, which is the reform of gun laws in Western Australia. So it's been relentless over here, Michael. I know you're in Victoria, but you have a lot of influence on the ground here and a lot of members. A lot of people listening are members of some sort of shooting organisations, and they are working behind the scenes a lot with this government as much as they can. And then this paper that came out, Reform of Firearm Laws in Western Australia, I've been reading it over the last month, as I know a lot of people have, and it's been quite a traumatizing read, to say the least. And that's, yes, it's been a bit to get through. So let's start with you, Michael. Just give us a bit of background about your organisation, how you got involved in our sport, and where you're at with what you've seen going on in Western Australia.
So Firearm Owners United, or FOU, is a registered non-for-profit advocacy organisation. I won't use the term lobbyist because lobbyists get paid and we certainly don't. And we represent law-abiding firearm owners in Australia, obviously, and hunters and the wider sporting community. Our operating team consists of volunteers who bring a wide variety of expertise to the organisation, from former defence members, security specialists, including IT, agriculturalists, firearm trainers and instructors, sport shooters, hunters, scientists, and so much more. I got involved when I started the organisation with a few other people in 2015. And I've been here ever since, unless anyone wants to take my place. So back in 2015, in response to the Adler saga, that's when we started. In 2017, we became registered not-for-profit, and we've been doing work ever since.
Well, I love some of the work you've done. I know that you've been quite instrumental on the ground in Victoria within the last parliament, getting a few laws across the line. So thank you for your service. I'm also a volunteer, although I'm not a member of any political party. It's just little old Lady Liberty doing what I can. This is all-consuming, this fight against the government here in Western Australia, particularly for shooters and hunters, which is something I'm quite passionate about, being a shooter myself. And I worked for SSAA National for 5 years as their lobbyist. I worked for former Senator David Leyonhjelm, who's the most pro-gun senator we've ever had. I've been involved in a few parties that are pro-gun, but now it's just me. And my dad called me the other day. He said, why are you still putting yourself out there? You don't get paid a cent. You don't represent any shooting organisation or political party. Why are you doing this? And I said, Dad, because it's the right thing to do. So putting that to the side, let's get into it. Let's talk about this paper that's been doing the rounds, consultation paper. What do you think of it, Michael? What was your first reaction?
Well, my first reaction was great. This is utter BS. We'd been hearing blibs and blabs drip through the media here and there, and no one was entirely sure because nothing had been confirmed yet. And then finally it was. And I mean, it was disgusting. It's insane what they want to do, the amount of legislation that I won't even use the term want to pass, because with that government, it will pass. There's no doubt about it. It's a majority Labor government with a bunch of MPs that are not going to go against the party line. So unfortunately, without a miracle, it probably will pass, and hopefully the feedback we can present through these submissions in the consultation period is enough to have some sort of impact on it, even if it's a few little changes, because at the end of the day, they are going to pass something.
Going back a step, we were told last month that the new laws were to be introduced in the Western Australian Parliament last month, but instead this discussion, well, they're calling it a consultation paper. I'm calling it a manifesto because that's what it is. And yeah, we've been given a month to respond. I would encourage people with, Firearm Owners United and other shooting organisations are writing big submissions. Mine is at last count 2,700 words, but I am known for writing. We would encourage you to just write a letter, even a one-page letter at this stage, just to have your voice heard. I mean, there's a lot of things you can talk about, and there's a lot of things that concern us, but just focus on the things that would directly affect you and tell your story. That's why I started Shooting the Breeze, was to tell the stories of what's happening in Western Australia, because we are a one-party state. We have a media that's complicit with whatever the government tells them to do. They doxed us. They doxed the entire firearm registry. So this is why I'm holding this show. If you have any questions in the chat, please jump in. We're here for about an hour to answer any questions. But let's talk about your submission on behalf of Firearm Owners United. What are some of the key things that you've addressed, and what are your key concerns?
I think the most important thing to do with the submission itself, or during the consultation period, is to answer the questions that they've posed in the paper. I mean, you're right. A bare minimum, at least writing a letter is better than something. But it is, and I know because I do it all the time, very easy to just go on unhinged rants, which will lead nowhere. If you can focus on the questions or a question, and just, if they've said we're doing X because of Y, hop online, do a bit of research, and just dispute it and include that in the letter. As we know, all this is doing is punishing law-abiding firearm owners, and the crims are going to get guns anyway. It's like basic data from the ABS will tell you this stuff as it is. So quick Google search, quick research online, and you can dispute anything that they're really saying.
Yeah. Well, I'll start. I looked at the statement of purpose, which is on page 5, if anyone's following at home. And even that, they've used public safety in every line. They've said firearms possession and use is a privilege, not a right. They've said firearms may cause as dangerous items, without mentioning the fact that they're inanimate objects until they're in the hands of an individual, and it's how the individual uses them that could cause harm, not the firearm itself. There's no mention or acknowledgement that firearms are a legitimate tool, that they've been used safely by generations of Western Australians for a variety of safe activities, including the tradition and skill of hunting, or to dispatch pest or feral animals on farming properties, target shooting for sporting purposes or recreation. No acknowledgement whatsoever, which I find insulting. And they've also gone on to kind of insinuate that we're some kind of public safety risk under the current laws. So what did you guys think at Firearm Owners United when you read the document, in terms of the tone? I guess we'll start with the tone and the intention of what this is meant to achieve.
Well, the tone is pretty evident from the start. As you said, that safety is brought up a lot, and you're tugging at the heartstrings of people. And I guess when you've had nearly 30 years since 1996, if the math's right in my head, of social engineering where you're told guns are bad. To the average Australian, it makes sense. Why would you not do this? And they don't think outside the box. They just think if license holders have guns, then criminals get guns that way. They don't. Drugs are illegal, but they don't think that, oh, hang on, there's drugs everywhere. That must mean there's guns everywhere too. Probably because half of them want the drugs anyway, but that's another story. So the tone is very aggressive in the consultation paper, and we've answered everything to the best of our ability. Like, as I said, we're all volunteers and we've all chipped into this submission, and currently just tidying it up at the moment, ready to submit tonight because there's bits of someone's added something somewhere and we've got to reorder it and everything. So it's not quite perfect yet, but I'm getting there. And I think you said the same. You're still midway through yours or nearing the end, not quite ready.
Well, that's it. We did. I know the shooting organisations here, the Firearms Community Alliances, most of them have banded under. The first thing they said was we want an extension in terms of the consultation period. Now, there's been a history of asking this government to have genuine consultation, and it's not been forthcoming. So I didn't think that it would be in this case, but it is quite a substantial document, and I understand why people have been reaching out to me and others saying, what do we do? Like, where do you even start? Not to mention some of the effects that reading this has on people, because this affects our livelihoods, it affects our recreation, it will affect a lot of people's weekends and what they do with their family.
That's it.
So
yeah.
it's nothing to be sneezed at. And the fact that we haven't been given an extension, there's no point complaining about it now. It is what it is. But it is very important for us to have our views on the record and submitted to the government, because it is there to point out in history. When these laws go through, as Michael, you said they will, because of the nature of WA politics at the moment, I cannot wait to the next election, although at this rate I don't think I'll be in WA by then, because I cannot stand to live in such a society where my rights are infringed upon and my liberties. I have Lady Liberty after all, but now I'm getting fired up. We need to have our view on the record for the sake of history. So please, if you're listening, I encourage you, even if it's one page, just put down what you're feeling and send it off. Stay on topic, stay to what they're suggesting. Don't just give them a spray. We can do that at the pub. Stay on topic. Now, one topic that I want to talk about tonight with you, Michael, which is the thing that is screaming out to me that I am most upset about, is the fact that they want to use someone's views, opinions, or attitudes as part of the fit and proper person requirements. They have not outlined in this document how they are going to come to the opinion that our views, opinions, or attitudes do not make us a fit and proper person. There is things in here about someone at the club can ring up and dob you in. So we're creating a dob in a neighbour kind of culture, which is not the Australian way. They tried to do it to us during the pandemic, which is not something that we've ever been about. Mind your own business. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, do what you want. That is the society that I was raised in. They're trying to take that away from us. But how are they going to judge that a person is not able to possess or use a firearm based on their views, opinions, and attitudes? They have not published what these views, opinions, and attitudes are. What have you guys come to from Firearm Owners United? What have you guys said about that?
Well, without a set definition, that's obviously a very slippery slope. Obviously disagreeing with the Labor government could see you losing your license.
Making a meme, perhaps. I'm
Correct.
screwed.
minor road rage of just, tooting your horn maybe a few too many times when someone cuts you off or something could... sorry, I just saw Daniel's comment.
We can't smile, Daniel. We're too upset. It's a very serious topic.
And is it's a slippery slope. There's too many ways that they could just shut you out. And I mean, even voicing your opinion against this could be one of them. And it's obviously not something we agree with. I mean, there is certainly a line where you do cross from being fit and proper to perhaps you shouldn't be in possession of firearms, and that needs to be a very defined line and the opposite of what they're proposing, really. Like, it's insane to like, I'm lost for words. Why, how, and
well, it's Orwellian. It's a surveillance state. It's a social credit system. This is what we're looking at in Western Australia in 2023. They've also said a person's conduct and behaviour, e.g. violent behaviour. But, how many nights have we been out on the Turks? You got a little bit rowdy. You should have gone home a bit earlier. Something's happened. You wake up with regret. You call whoever it was and you move on. That'll be used against you now. Physical and mental health. Mental health I'll get into in a minute, but physical, this is discrimination territory, which Ken has already put in the comments. We know that shooting is a sport that people of disabilities can also, they represent us at the Paralympics because it is a sport that allows for people of all abilities, including women and kids, to participate in. So the fact that they've even included physical, what do you even mean by that? What do you even mean by that? This document does not spell it out. Another issue in terms, we're still talking about fit and proper person requirements if you've just joined us now, the person's way of living or domestic circumstances. Now, when I read this, I thought, okay, so if you live in a caravan, which, the way things are going, it's hard enough to pay rent at the moment, especially in WA. You're living in a caravan, you don't have proper storage requirements, so you can't own a firearm. Or if you're a single male or a female like me, know that we have concerns about you living alone. There's already been this rhetoric in the media about people living alone, like painting us as some kind of potential weirdos when, this is just our lives. Some of us like to live alone. Some of us aren't married. We're just living by ourselves. Why would that be used against us if we want to own a firearm? I mean, this is crazy, the stuff that we're even talking about. The person is of good repute. Who decides if someone has a good reputation or not? So the state is now going to decide if a person is of moral character based on what criteria? Society is always changing. It used to be frowned upon to be a divorced person. Now that's, it doesn't end in happily ever after for everybody. That's reality. Why would you punish us for that? Now I'm getting all carried away. Mate, what do you think about it? What do you think? What do you
could
guys think?
essentially, just with, those alone, you could remove your entire license base. Like, you could say that people renting aren't able to, for whatever the government could decide. But yes, all right, if you're renting, you can't bolt a safe into a wall, therefore you're not eligible to own firearms. Or you live in commission housing or department housing, whatever it's called in Western Australia. The government releases, or the Department of Housing releases a statement that firearms can't be kept in those houses. You could just slowly chip it away at everyone that owns a license. And as you said, who and how do you determine someone of good reputation? And, that could be ruined with one few too many drinks at a party, night out, edgy meme, etc. So, yeah, it does look like could be used to just chip away at how many license holders are in the state. And I did notice in there as well at 3.24 collectors licenses. Now, I don't know legislation as it is. I believe if you have a collector's license, the clubs do run shoots. Do you know?
I don't have a collector's license. Is anyone in the chat able to clarify what it currently is? That's the other thing. You're always thinking, what is it now? Or where is it in the current laws? Because they've just after 1996, Western Australia was the only state that didn't update its Firearms Act. It
Yeah,
just
I noticed
changed
that.
things via regulation. So tacking on things after things, it's become a dog's breakfast. Everybody agrees that it needs to be updated. That is not the argument we are trying to make. We are trying to say that what this Labor Party government has come up with, especially outlined in this consultation paper, and what's not outlined, is not appropriate. It's offensive, it's unworkable, and it will put the next generation of Western Australians, it will make it harder for us to participate in sport shooting and learn the skill of hunting. That's the reality. That's what we're staring down the barrel of here in WA. So you were talking about the requirements for collectors, Michael.
Yeah, so I did notice in there at 3.2.4 collectors licenses that they are entitled to possess but not use the firearm named and identified in the license, which means if previously you were allowed to use them, which you can in most other states, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, I think. Yeah, well, I was going to say if this does pass, transfer everything over to a collector's license. So you can argue that they didn't get rid of as many guns as they did. At the end of the day, you probably could still do the same thing, but the changes are saying that you can't use them. And that's certainly something we're obviously arguing against, because what's the point of collecting things if you can't use them? That is like my biggest gripe.
Yeah, just take it out the safe to hold it every now and then, which is not what we do. It shows a complete misunderstanding of our entire recreation. I was also going to say the collector's license thing has made my dad quite upset, because I'm got heirloom rifles. I've spoken about this on my show before coming my way, and we don't want to make them permanently inoperable just to suffice this state government's ideological opposition to firearm ownership. But that's what they're making us do. They've also publicly said that their intent is to reduce the number of registered, legally held firearms in WA. So we're talking about numbers now, not talking about capacity or action or caliber, which they've also restricted. We're talking about sheer numbers, arbitrary numbers that they've plucked, 10 for competition shooters and farmers and 5 for hunters. What is Firearm Owners United view on numbering and limiting the number of firearms an individual who has been approved by all the processes, telling us how many we can and can't own?
So the more the merrier, obviously. You know, we don't like rookie numbers down here. But firstly, and this is another gripe of mine, is you don't actually need a collector's license to collect things. The collection is just, you just have a bunch of them. That is the definition. So, you know, some people collect bottle caps, keychains, stamps, whatever. Some people collect guns. And you can have a solid collection on an AB license or a H license in most states until they start getting a bit icky that maybe you're bullshitting some of your genuine reasons for them. But there is absolutely no reason why there should be a limit on the amount of firearms you can own. Like, it's not cool at the end of the day. I'd cry if that was happening to me right now.
I've been crying a lot the last week, and this has a big part to do with that. The thing that makes me upset the most is they haven't even justified, not once have they justified these arbitrary numbers. Even in this so-called consultation paper, there is no RIS statement. I've got this, I've worked for government before in a past life, I try not to think about, that says there are standards that you need to adhere to when making laws, and you need to provide a regulatory impact statement why you've come to this conclusion and why something needs to be changed in terms of regulations. There is no justification for 10 or 5. Absolutely none. It's purely an ideological position that this government, this state, does not want its civilians to own more than 10 or more than 5. you need to provide us the reasons why. I'm sorry, it's not good enough. This paper is offensive. Moving on from that, before I get too angry
I think they did provide the reasons why, which they just said safety.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry. How could I forget? Because it's unsafe at the moment for responsible citizens who have broken no laws, who have jumped through all the hoops. Yeah, we are the threat to public. Sorry, I forgot. It slipped my mind. Another thing I wanted to talk about that is, for me, a big issue is the mental health requirements as part of fit and proper person tests. They've already said they'll be mandatory. They've already said they'll be annual. They've already said that that's it. That's what we're facing here. Now, my issue with this, which I've spoken about before in terms of veterans who have PTSD, that's considered a mental health issue. Postnatal depression for women is also considered a mental health issue. ADHD is considered a mental health issue. So are you saying, is the government saying in Western Australia, because we are only talking about WA, if someone suffers from PTSD, postnatal depression or ADHD in Western Australia, they are no longer considered a fit and proper person to own a firearm forever? But if I move back to South Australia and I have any of these conditions, it's okay? What do you guys think at Firearm Owners United about the mental health requirements?
So, once again, at some point in time, there is a safety aspect, but that really is a lot down the line than what is necessary. I think most states sort of have it right. Maybe not so much New South Wales, or definitely not what WA is implementing here. At the end of the day, it's discrimination against people. I mean, if you're literally being discriminated against for having ADHD or other things on the spectrum. And yeah, as someone just said, it takes 2 weeks to get an appointment with the GP. And you're going to have to do this yearly. I'm assuming it's not going to be rebated by this stage in time, as Medicare probably won't exist much. And it's already a costly exercise in WA. I don't know how much your license fees are, but your PTAs are insane. 120, are they? Yeah. So they're $9.20 for a long arm here in Victoria. And you're adding your yearly mental health check. Does that mean licenses are going to become yearly as well? Because if you have a 5-year license and then you have to go get a yearly check and the doctor says no, what happens there?
You won't be refunded.
Yeah. Or,
yeah.
It's once again, it's insane that they've come up with this. You wonder what they're thinking, who's behind it.
For me, it's also controlling someone's management of their own body and mind. Why it gives the commissioner the power to direct a firearm license holder to attend to their medical practitioner or another medical practitioner. Who knows? It might be a state-approved medical practitioner. You don't know. It gives them the ability for them to direct us to go and do that when it's our bodies. Last I checked, it's giving the state the power to direct us when we need to go and see a medical professional. Sometimes you can't afford to. That's the other issue. It's adding another layer on to the process of being a firearm owner in WA, and I can't see the justification. Of course, nobody wants to see anybody, and I've said this in my submission, we have a culture in our community of helping each other out. At the range, if we notice someone is not their usual self, we talk to them. We have a culture of self-reporting each other to each other. We don't need to turn to the state to report our neighbor or our friend because they're going through a tough time. That's the last thing we want to do. We want to be there for each other in times of need. This is an attack on the culture that we've fostered in our community for years about looking after each other. This is not the Australian way. That's my other issue with it as well. Is there anything you wanted to add in terms of fit and proper person?
Oh, well, I'll just throw in the chat. Thanks for you people in WA that are educating me here. It's hard to stay on top of 6 states and 2 territories legislation all around. So 1 year licenses, that's, yeah. Imagine having to do that to your driver's license every 12 months. Just
yeah, the fact it's being treated
pay again. And at this point, you might as well all move. It'll be cheaper.
Don't tell us that, Michael. We can't. We have to. This is why it's important to put in your submission, write your letters. That's why we're holding this chat tonight.
That is true. That is true. Yes, that's what we're here for.
I know you're like my dad. I've had this conversation so many times. Just leave, Kate. Just leave. Well, not yet. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying for the time being.
In terms of, as you were saying, the fit and proper person, I think it's good. The pub test at the end of the day. Would you have a beer with that person? Like, that's really what it should be, and not much more. If they're a good person, why are they being punished? Why are we making them undergo psychological evaluation?
Why are we treating them like a potential criminal? It's not, last I checked, it's not a criminal offence to have mental health problems. I mean, I was looking at the stats before, and most Australians, especially after the last few years, have put their hand up and said, or made a phone call to life, or reached out for help in terms of mental health. I mean, in this day and age, cost of living, society's relationship breaking down, no wonder people are struggling. Do not use that against us and try and take away our private property because you think we could be, you're portraying us. You're portraying us as a potential threat. And I'm talking about the government. I'm talking about the complicit media. And I also have to say, I've been looking at the West Australian, my favourite propaganda rag, and they've been putting the advertisement saying, firearm consultation, have your say now. Big ads paid for by your taxes, by the way, next to stories involving the misuse of firearms and bikies misusing firearms. I mean, I literally sit there in my coffee shop and I laugh because it's so obvious. You can see it's like a chessboard, and I have to well done, Western Australian Labor government. You have played this perfectly. You've doxed us. You've used media to your advantage. You've used your one-party state to your advantage, and you're playing the rest of the community who, like you said, Michael, we don't really see firearms much. We can't even advertise for our firearm shops most of the time. They get denied advertisements on billboards because public safety. We've conditioned Australians who aren't involved in our sport and haven't had the opportunity to get involved in our sport because maybe they're not from the country. They've spent their lives in the cities. Well, it's very different when you go outside of the CBD. I'm from the country. These firearms are a part of my life. They're normal to me and they're important. The government, not just this one, all governments in Australia have been very good at eroding Australians' ability to even understand our culture. So putting that to the side, that's another rant.
I understand.
Yeah, it's tough over here. Moving on from the mental health and the health stuff, which I'm opposed to, unless you've got something to add, Michael.
I was just gonna circle back there. There was 2 things. I've already forgotten one. Was things like relationship counselling as well. So if you're having issues in your marriage or your relationship, whatever, and you want to fix it, so you go seek help. Well, that's something that would need to be declared in any state as psychological help, and would require a letter in every state from the psychologist saying you are fit and proper, which is, you're just trying to help your relationship. Like, why do you now need to have to go back and then get a letter saying I'm fine, I'm normal, I just want to stay with my partner?
And it's none of the state's business either. Sorry, but some things are private and they don't need to know that information to use it against us.
Nothing's private anymore.
Yeah, true. Moving on to another big part of this document that I took issue with. There's a lot. So please bear with me while I find it. I'll go back to the docs. Was there anything you guys really took issue with? I mean, where do you begin? But
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, I mean, someone who does collect firearms myself, both on and off a collector's license, 3.2.4 did grind my gears. If you look at the, sorry, I'll just scroll up. Land permission for shooting, property letters. So as people are aware, property letters were the main way to get your firearms license. In WA, you essentially bought them at a gun shop with your firearm. And that's just how it was, because they'd written the legislation as such. So you went and got a letter, and I think farmers probably made a few bucks out of it as well, and good on them. I mean, if you can, why not? But it looks as though they want to put a limit on the amount of letters a farmer can issue.
Yeah, which is a breach of private property rights, which this government has got a reputation. They did it with the farmers with the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act, where they wanted farmers to get a private consultant, pay them about $250 an hour to come out and look at your land and do an assessment to see if they could build a shed there on your own property. So now they're once again encroaching on private property rights for landowners to have whoever they want come to their property and shoot. That's my take on it. Is that what you guys came to the same conclusion?
Well, I think as a farmer or a property owner, as you said, it's private property, and as the owner of that property, you can let whoever you want onto your property to shoot, and as many as you like. You may have people that travel, family, friends or something, that travel once a year up to your property. Sorry, I just saw a comment and a reply to a comment about taking legislation to court.
Feel free to read out the comments for me.
I will jump back to that, and but as I was saying, you may have family friends that come up for a yearly trip and come and hunt on the property, and then you may actually get a few other local shooters in to help control the vermin and the pests. Like, it's your property. If you want to invite as many people as you want to shoot on it, that's up to you. The government should have absolutely no say on who you are giving your property letters to.
Yeah.
But I will just go back to this comment. So there was a certain organization that, through the way they worded things, would make it sound like they took politicians to court for passing legislation and got it reversed. That never happened. That cannot happen. That's not how it works. If you can't take court action for a politician doing their job, which is passing legislation. The only way you can fight it is stopping it being passed, or if it is passed, try to get it get enough politicians to change the legislation again on your side this time. And that's why these submissions are really important right now, so that hopefully we can have some effect. Because and I say that really loosely, because when this passes, we want it to pass in the best possible shape ever. And it will be a very, very long time before we do see a different government or a minority government where we could start reversing some of these things. And yes, it can be reversed. Well, not per se. You just pass new legislation changing the laws back, essentially. But that will take voting correctly.
In a system that isn't really representative of the people, I must say. That's why I'm not involved in politics anymore. I think the whole system needs to change. That's a whole other live stream. The thing that can be challenged, though, in court, and I was talking to former Senator David Leinhelm the other day, particularly about these views, opinions, and attitudes being used to deny someone a license. He said it would be very interesting for when that's challenged in court, because they'll have to provide, then it will be in tort law saying this is a reason why someone can't own a gun. So we're actually transferring more powers to the court system to be able to determine. And this is why it's important to study civics at school, guys. I know they're trying to teach you all kinds of crazy stuff. I graduated in 2005. I don't know what they're teaching anymore. But legal studies, civics, understanding how government works is very important to teach your kids that, because that's why they need to know how to vote. One other thing that I took issue with, and you might not agree with me or Michael, but I want to talk about it anyway, criminal records. So they're going to bring in, you're not allowed to own a firearm if you've convicted a number of offences. They haven't given us the complete list. There's an offence involving assault with a weapon. Now we know that a stick can be used as a weapon. So if you hit someone with a stick and they charge you, well, no more firearm for you. An offence involving violence. Of course, we don't want anyone who's violent to be able to own a firearm, but an offence involving violence, that could also be a road rage incident. I mean, it's just a can of worms. And then they've given them basically open slather. So anyone who has a conviction with an offence outside a 5-year period. Now, last I checked, people can be rehabilitated. People serve the time for the crime, come back into society, rehabilitated, have the extra support they need if they need it, go to counselling, whatever it may be. You are not punished forever for an action that you did in your youth or on a night out or whatever it may be. That's called do your time for your crime, move on, come back into society. They are going to permanently punish an individual if they have a criminal record, whatever the list I've written in my show us the list of all the crimes, because it's not substantiated here. I don't feel comfortable with that, because this could be used to prevent even more people from having a firearm and having those skills and having the opportunity to go to a range based on a criminal conviction. What did you guys have when it came to that?
So, yeah, look, that is definitely a hard one. Once again, you need that distinct line, and I think a lot of people could argue you probably checked a long, long time ago, because a lot of people don't seem to be getting rehabilitated these days and repeat offences. But certainly there are a minority, a very few minority, that do have one major fuck up in life and try to move on with it. And you should be able to. We are 120% against mandatory sentencing, which is what that is alluding to, that it will be. Mandatory sentencing is its own slippery slope. And people, even shooters, call for mandatory sentencing. They say, you should go to, jail for X amount of years if caught with an illegal firearm or this or that or whatever. And it actually would apply to you in the everyday sense. And if it's mandatory sentencing, regardless of the situation, the judge has to give you the minimum as per the legislation defines on mandatory, whatever. And that could be as simple as a license lapse and then you're found with unlicensed firearms, something like that. Guess what? You're going to jail because mandatory sentencing says so. Your situation doesn't matter because it's mandatory sentencing. And we are against that, 120%. And that, even you're caught with a gel blaster, you fall under the same thing. So we don't want to see that. We don't want to know about that. We are against it. I know the Shittest Fishes Farmers Party got some flack for voting against mandatory sentencing, and that is exactly why, because it will affect you, the law-abiding firearm owner, in the same sense. Yes, at a certain point, there are certain people that shouldn't own firearms. We can agree to that. However, distinct line, you should be able to be rehabilitated. And if you have been, there should be a proper process to become a non-prohibited person or similar, whatever the case is in WA, and a proper chain to follow so that you can become licensed and enjoy the sport.
Well said. I agree. Another thing that might be a bit controversial, but this is how my brain works. So I do a lot of reading, a lot of writing. It's what I do in my spare time when I could be doing other things. But I'm so passionate about my sport and my firearms. I just want the best for Western Australians, and this is not the best. That this is not what we deserve. They're treating us like subjects instead of citizens. It's not okay. Now there's provisions in here that they'll be able to ban someone based on who they essentially hang out with. Now, this is to target organised crime groups and bikies.
Yeah.
So if you're associated or even if you are related, you can't control who you're related to, unfortunately. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of us who wish we didn't have one of those crazy aunties or uncles. We can't control who we're related to. If they choose to be a member of an organised crime group that the government has listed as part of their criminal law prohibited insignia act, why should we be punished? So if I'm out at the pub and I get a photo snap because I talked to a guy and the next minute it turns out he's a member of some organizations, I don't know, I was just saying hello, oh, you can't own a gun. This is how it can be used. So it on face value, a normie or a member of society, oh, that's great. If you're hanging out with a bikie, they're untrustworthy, therefore you shouldn't own guns. So you're now saying that I'm an irresponsible person that can't own my gun because I associate with someone the state has deemed an unacceptable person. I think that doesn't pass the PUD test to me.
Look, I think, yeah, in that sense, yes, look, we'd agree with that. On the other hand, we do somewhat agree with what they're saying as such, but, you know, clear defined lines, just because you drank at the same spot as someone in a outlaw motorcycle gang, defined outlaw motorcycle gang by the government, or you are related to someone in one, but you don't dabble in crime or anything like that, you should not be punished for it whatsoever. Certainly if you are dabbling in it or you're, you know, still crime free per se, but, you know, applying for PTAs and stuff for people that do have records and shouldn't be holding firearms, which is what it's meant to stop. We can agree with that, but there does need to be the proper process that if you accidentally get slapped with one because someone didn't apply common sense, then you can follow the process to get that removed, because that's ridiculous and shouldn't happen.
Well, I'll give you, this is the example I wrote down. Senator Lydia Thorpe, Green senator who turned independent, she was dating a member of outlaw motorcycle gang. So under Western Australia's new laws, a sitting senator who was elected by the people would be banned from owning a firearm but could sit in the Australian government. Just saying, I'm not defending her. I'm just saying that.
As a Green senator, wouldn't she be banned under the mental health laws they're proposing anyway?
Don't. Well, I actually wrote in my cover letter, because I've worked in politics a long time, and I've never seen such anti-gun legislation or views apart from the Greens Party, who, at least to their credit, come out and say they are an anti-gun party. They do not believe in private civilian firearms ownership. This government is not treating us with the respect in coming out and saying that. They're going about it in this attack using the media, etc., etc. The other thing I wanted to talk about is giving the police more powers. These laws give the police more powers to search our cars, search our homes, search our private property without a warrant if they suspect not even suspect, if they think that we've breached any of these laws, including fit and proper person. Oh, I just need to search your car because I don't think that you're a fit and proper person and I need to check. It's Western Australia is becoming a police state right before our very eyes. I don't know if people realize that, but I'm constantly thinking about that. What did you guys from Firearm Owners United write when it came to giving the police more powers to enforce these laws that they've helped write?
I think as a firearm owner in the state, the best thing you could possibly do right now is actually join the police force. Apparently, they've got all the gears, all the guns, and you're good to go. But what happened to being innocent until proven guilty? I guess, if the attending officer doesn't like your attitude, you are no longer fit and proper. I'm going to search you. I know you've just come back from the range because I saw you pull out. See you later. It is absolutely bullshit on that effect. And it really, this isn't America where they have to have a high suspicion to even breatho you for drink driving. Like, we have clearly defined things, and just they want to define you as not fit and proper because they didn't like your attitude, because you rolled your eyes, because you slightly raised your voice. It's worrying.
Yeah, it is a worry. There's also things in here about, we talked about it briefly before, dobbing in your mate. It will give them provisions to provide information to the police and you'll be protected. So do we really want our culture in Australia to turn into that, where we're calling the police on each other, we're dobbing in a mate to the state? We had a fight with them and we know they've got guns, which sometimes happens when it comes to relationship breakdowns. When I worked in Senator David Leyonhjelm's office, we got a lot of calls from men in particular who went through relationship breakdown, and the women made false claims against them in order to take their guns off them. Like, if someone did that to me, that would break my heart, because that's my culture. That's something I do with my dad, and I love going home and shooting with him. And these new laws do not even give you the chance to they'll take them away from you. You're guilty and you have to prove that you're innocent. That's not how our society was meant to be. What did you guys have when it came to that kind of thing, Michael?
Well, what happened in the good old days when you had a dispute with your neighbour and you called Tracy Grimshaw? You had it aired on national TV. That's the way it should be. It shouldn't be ringing up the WA police and fucking your neighbour up the arse, for lack of a better term. As I'll just touch base on what you said about mainly men ringing up and saying, false accusations. I think if things do look a bit iffy, the best thing you can do is just grab all your firearms, go down to the dealer, put them on their books, get the receipt and lock it in the safe. That way, if any claims are made, cops will come, they'll say, she said, you threatened me with a gun, or he threatened you with a gun on this day, blah, 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 whatever. You can open up the safe. The receipt will be there that they were handed in a long time before and they're fucking lying. That is the smartest and best thing you could possibly do if you foresee a relationship breaking down. Until it's all done and dusted, then go get them back. If you own a lot of guns, then it gets a bit complex because it gets really expensive real fast.
There's also new laws here about restricting the amount of ammunition that we can possess. Now, I know it's in other states as well. In South Australia, it's as much as you can shoot in a year, which,
That's it.
I go shooting a lot, but here it says it will restrict the amount. I'm not sure if they've decided on a figure.
How do they define what you could shoot in a year? And
all of this conversation, this is all about punishing the law-abiding firearm owner. Nothing that I've read in this document or that I've seen to date, will affect the already low amount of gun violence in Western Australia. No one's been threatening police. That was their excuse for why they brought in the caliber restrictions and disarmed some of the population, which mainly included veterans who shoot long-range precision rifle, because that's what they did in the army and that's what they like to do to relax. So the Western Australian government disarmed veterans, if you haven't heard that yet, under the guise of they might shoot at the Bearcat or the police. Not that any threat had been made, but that's the attitude that we have in WA from the police and from this government. They had the opportunity to look at these laws in the last Parliament. I was working for a politician at the time, and we asked them, okay, let's look at these laws. They're old. You want to redo them? They said, no, we want to do that another time. And now the time just happens to align when they've got absolute control of both houses and hardly anyone standing up for us. And I've seen the Western Australian Firearms Community Alliance are now backing the Nationals for some reason. There's a woman who filled a casual vacancy who's now a member of Parliament, so she wasn't elected. She was second on the ticket and filled the spot. Now she's meant to be the poster girl for shooters in the state. I hope that she'll come out and do something for us. We've had Dr. Bryden Walker from the Legalised Cannabis Party, who's a shooter and has been vocal about it, but because he's in the Cannabis Party, they don't like to mix drugs and guns, even though cannabis is a legal plant now for medicinal reasons. So it'd be interesting to see if someone is a medicinal cannabis user, will that be used against them? Time will tell.
That's an interesting one, I think, and not just in WA. That's, I think, in all states and territories, how this medicinal cannabis thing is going to play out is something we should be watching carefully.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's new. They're still working it out with driving as it is. And this, as everyone is aware, marijuana remains in your system for a few days. So how do you police it as such?
Yeah.
And it's something we should be looking at from the perspective of every state and territory. And but at least your Cannabis Party politician is pro-gun, because the 8 or ever how many that just got elected in 2019 down here are very anti-gun.
Well, that's why I've been very supportive of the party in WA, because they have shown to be different to other, like I know they're in the other states they're more left-leaning, but here they've remained centre, and hats off to them for that, because they could have easily gone the other way. So they've come out. Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party, they're going through the process of registration at the moment. I know I've got to give you guys a call back. Sorry, my phone is hectic. Hopefully they get up, because I don't know if everybody knows, but in WA they also changed the electoral laws. So they deregistered every political party. You had to re-register again. They raised the requirements of how many members you need, which is 500. They also raised the price of registering a party, so they made it a bit harder for minor parties to be involved in the process. Hopefully Shooters and Fishers get registered, Legalised Cannabis Hab. Any party that supports shooters, I will support. So let's hope we'll see.
So they are just keeping their government in power. You're getting rid of your competition. You're knowing only the majors can stay in. I mean, it's hard to be mad at them because it's smart.
I know it's a chessboard, and they're playing us all perfectly. And it's hard living in Western Australia when you can see so clearly what's happening, and you're just screaming, saying people like the government has just got so big, and the police state, they're giving them all these powers. Like, do we want to live in this kind of society? I don't. I'm just trying to get the message out there as best I can. So thank you.
If we get off our little rant and go back to ammunition.
Yeah.
It's once again like how do you define a quantity? Because some people would think 100 rounds is a lot, and you're like, well, that's 2 packets of 22. Like, you know, an average comp for both handguns and rifles could be 60 rounds anyway. So that's 2 packets with 40 left over, then what, you have to go buy another packet, but you can't buy 2 more packets because you've still got 40? Or do you have to show that you've used your ammunition? How is this? You're only allowed to buy X amount every week, month. How are they? Obviously, they haven't defined how they're going to do it, which once again is worrying. And at this point in time,
and our magazines are already limited. Calibers, magazines, like
exactly.
can only fire a certain amount. So
what is more ammo going to do? And as a commenter said, what about reloading? How are they going to police that? Are they going to ban reloading? They
were talking about that initially, but in this document it appears that you can reload, but they will obviously count that towards how much ammunition you've got in your possession.
So is there a limit on the amount of primers you can buy? You can only buy 200 now because you're only allowed 200 rounds of ammunition. But then again, at the end of the day, they don't even need to pass this legislation because no one's got anything anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you could put that in your document.
There was another thing I wanted to talk about was the training requirements. So they're currently considering that TAFE will be the only institution that can provide the licensing training required. So they've basically given themselves, because TAFE is owned by the government, the state is going to give themselves a monopoly on firearms training, which is our revenue. Our money will go back into the state's coffers in order for them to fund these laws that they're going to police the law-abiding firearm owner, not the criminal. I don't like monopolies on anything. I believe in the free market, the real free market, not the subsidized corporate crony free market that we have in Australia at the moment. But if I was a gun club or a shooting organization, I would be saying, well, why can't we provide the training? We're just, if not more capable than a state government institution. So I hope that our shooting, did you guys write about this in your submission?
So I'm in Victoria. I'm a FICPOL qualified instructor for long arms and handguns, which is how it's run down here. My vice president was an instructor up in Queensland previously. He doesn't instruct anymore. I hate it going through TAFE. I think that is absolutely bullshit. It should be done through proper qualified people, and you should not have to pay an arm and a leg to get the training. I think in Victoria, we're pretty lucky. It's actually a joke, and I love it. It's so easy. They are pushing to change it, but we're not going to, even when they change it, it's not going to go to TAFE level. I think putting in that you have to do a course or a certificate 2, 3, 4, whatever they want to call it, in something to own and possess, use firearms is just downright the R word. And how do they? It doesn't make any sense. It makes sense for the people that do it every day, and you're right, in a club setting, to do training, and that only a select few are now going to be employed by a TAFE, and they'll have to be paid as well, and they'll have to have other qualifications such as a Cert 4 in what is it? Training and assessment, Cert 4 in training and assessment, to be able to teach it. And then they'll probably, knowing WA is probably some other qualification they'll have to have, and they will not want to do it. It might end up costing them more in time, money, and effort from what they're going to be paid running these courses by a TAFE, and your instructors will get less and less. The courses will cost more and more. I mean, unless everyone just tries to get the qualification and pushes for it, you want to open yourself up in the state to being able to get licenses as best you can and as easily as you can. So, and that, once people say take a friend shooting, I don't know how hard that's going to be now with the new legislation changes. Can you take someone on the range without a license, or is that just fully done, banned?
Or you'll need some kind of certificate for them to even step foot on a range. That's what we're looking at here is control.
You have to do a pre-app in the certificate of shooting to even go and try it out. Like, I, once again, am against that. Straight to the clubs, straight to the people.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys have picked up in this document that you've included in your submission that you'd like to talk about?
Not look. There's already mistakes in it that I've picked up, like exemptions. I mean, not really relevant to civilian license holders, but as people should be aware, obviously defence and state police are exempt from, I should say, state and federal police are exempt from firearms legislation. So in 2.5 exemptions, they've already missed something, which will they'll have to either add, or there will be a lot of court cases very quickly. But as I said, that's not relevant to civilian license holders. I haven't really looked at the security side of it yet either. And I'm a security guard in this state as well. So we'll have a read of that later and see how that's going to affect the security industry. At the end of the day, and even paintball, I mean, that one looks pretty okay. You need a paintball.
Paintball shouldn't even be in the Firearms Act.
I agree with that. Don't be sorry.
How did they even get there? How did they even get there? I was thinking before.
1996 is how they got there.
Oh. How many people have been killed by a paintball or even airsoft ever?
I think, other than the fact it shouldn't be in the legislation in any state or territory, it's pretty straightforward, and that you have a license for a paintball gun to play paintball. Like, it's pretty much worded as any other. In fact, I don't even know if they changed it from the original legislation, because it looks very similar to Victoria's and any other states. So no comment on that really, other than it should be in there.
Yeah. They are bringing in the safe storage requirements. I think they've copied and pasted South Australia's from what I've been told.
All right. Well, I mean, that seems pretty dumb that you need to put a paintball gun in a safe, but if that's
Welcome to Australia. I have a lot of listeners in America who will probably be listening to this going, what the hell? Paintballs in a safe? Police being able to search your vehicles without a warrant? What the hell? When did we give up all our liberties? That's what I'm sitting here thinking every day as I watch the state, the boot of the state come harder onto my neck. That's what we're living with. They're also moving licenses to digital, which I'm against as well, purely for the fact that they can be hacked, as we've seen in recent times. I don't trust any digital storage of our private information, but hey, they had it on the firearms registry and they still doxed us, so I guess, whatever, that fight's already lost. But they're very adamant that you have to have a photo license now, so surveillance state, here we come.
So, as someone said, next you'll need to do a course to use a water pistol. That probably will be coming in next year. I was just having a scroll through, and I've already lost it again. But they did have in here something about firearm training businesses. I've lost it now. So, but that does appear to say that would be separate to TAFEs, because if you had a business, a firearms training, here we go, firearms training business, the proposed legislation will include firearms training as an improved purpose that includes training in a safe handling of firearms, along with other training requirements that may be described. The training business license may also include businesses that provide training in firearm proficiency. So So that's saying that you can get a license to do marksmanship fundamental courses, as well as safe handling courses, which means it won't all go to TAFE maybe. I'm not sure. Only time will really tell there.
Or it'll just be another layer.
Yeah, you've got to do this one before the TAFE one.
Yeah. So for anyone who's just tuned in, and we have gone over an hour now, I'm holding this Shooting the Breeze live chat with Michael Wild from Firearm Owners United to talk about the changes to the WA gun laws and the consultation paper that has been circulated by the Western Australia Labor Party government and the police. Your submissions are due by tomorrow. I would encourage everyone to just write down something, get something in on paper, whatever you're thinking, how it's going to affect you. I highly recommend that you get it there because it's on record, it's history, it's showing your opposition, and that counts. There will come a time, maybe not now, but when things will become right again. I promise you that. So get your submissions in. I'm doing a war and peace type one. I've written a lot. I'll have to keep working on it because it is due tomorrow.
Is it, sorry, just to cut in there, is it, when they say closes tomorrow, is that 11:59 WA time tonight? Or is that tomorrow 11:59?
Well, that's the other, who knows? I'm going to try and get mine in before midnight tonight, but hopefully they mean midnight tomorrow night. But you don't know with this government.
All it says is the 14th.
You don't know with this government. Gary said he did his 2 weeks ago, and they didn't even reply. That's nice. Not even a receipt saying received.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, they all got lost because it got hacked, or the opted happened. I don't know. Maybe I might post in a hard copy letter. I'm going back to the good old days. Hand deliver it with a signature, so they can't say, "Oh, we never received that." That's the state this is why people are saying these things. It's the mood on the ground here in Western Australia. We have been treated with utter contempt as a minority section of society. Legal firearm owners have been treated with utter contempt by this government. They don't care what we think. It's all been disingenuous from the start. You've seen, I've just tried to describe it. It's a chessboard, what they've done to us. Have your voices heard. I'll be doing more Shooting the Breeze episodes with people in the know like Michael. So thank you for joining me tonight last minute. I know it's late over in Victoria, Danistan, or whatever it's called these days.
Daylight savings too, so very late. But my pleasure, anytime.
Any other comments or advice that you want to give to people who are going to write something up today or tonight?
I think one thing we'll probably include that they'll just ignore is the WA licensing system is complex and idiotic at best. We once had a WA volunteer come down for a hunt down here, and it was absurd to see that his license was literally an A4 piece of paper with his firearms printed on it. And we were down at the local range, and he wanted to buy some ammo, and he unfolds this piece of paper to show his license, and the person at the counter just shrugged and said, "Looks official." And I think how easy would it be to make something that is literally printed on a piece of paper? I don't understand why you have your firearm individual licenses for your firearms rather than your firearms are registered to a license like every other state in the country. And that's something we'd be putting in there as a recommendation, because one little plastic or multiple plastic cards of categories, whatever, makes more sense than a piece of paper you're keeping folded up in your wallet. For those that are going to submit something, once again, yes, just a simple letter is better than nothing, but try to answer some of the questions that they're posing in the consultation paper, because that's really what they're looking for. So that's all I could say. Good luck to WA, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks to everyone who tuned in. I'll be putting this out on Spotify and letting you watch it tomorrow if you couldn't tune in tonight. Get your submissions in. Be heard. They are there to serve the people, not themselves, not the police, not their own self-interest. Remind them. Thank you again, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.